The legendary city of gold, El Dorado, is one of the top-tier, Tier 1 mysteries and lost civilizations of the world. It's up there with Atlantis and Shangri-La, and it's believed to have existed and found in the early colonial age around the beginning of the 16th century, but hasn't been found since. Is it just a king or a ritual? Is it a real golden city? Or is El Dorado a mystical place in another realm? I'll dive into each of these in this video and give my own unhinged thoughts towards the end, but let's just get into it. So first off, let's give a little background and start with some actual historical witnesses, if you could call them that. As some of the Spanish conquistadors began to travel along the northern coast of South America, near the base of Central America and the Caribbean, they began to find many Native American cities with an unusual amount of gold and other riches, which is of course relative to the density of those metals or riches in comparison to the cities in the Old World, but they assumed that there must have been an incredible city or collection of cities in the interior of the continent that all the gold and riches came from. Whether it be a massive gilded city or just an extremely rich town that had a mine over an enormous amount of rare earth deposits, the conquistadors became determined to find the rumored city. As they began to travel inland and talk to some of the natives, obviously not always in the kindest of ways, they discovered a story of a king-like figure, which I say king-like because the Muisqua people weren't a kingdom or empire. They were essentially more like a confederation of cities, unlike the Incas, Mayans, or Aztecs. So he was essentially an important religious and political figure, revered like a king, but not actually a king. But anyways, they would ceremoniously cover him in gold dust, described like a full body of powder, but gold. So the name El Dorado comes from that story specifically, the Golden One, or the Golden Hombre, or the Golden Man, essentially. And the story goes that the Golden Man would go to the center of Lake Guatavita, and another lake, Parimi, was also said to be the location of El Dorado, but I don't believe this lake was ever actually found. It's possible that this is actually Lake Guatavita too, but mentioned with a different name from a different tribe. But El Hombre Dorado would go out to offer gold, emeralds, and other riches and just throw them out into the middle of this lake, which I won't get into why they did this or the mythology or religious significance in this video. I probably will in the future, but not anytime soon, I don't think. Maybe. Just let me know in the Discord or even just in the comments if you'd think that'd be cool, but yeah. It was assumed that this king-like figure was living in an extremely wealthy city if he's just chucking gold, emeralds, and platinum into the bottom of this lake. Now, the Spanish conquistador Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada set out to find the Golden City based off the inferences and extensions of the Golden Hombre. He did this in the highlands of the Andes, which is now in modern-day Colombia. They found the Muisqua people and the Zipa, or king-like person, and demanded all the riches that they had, and he actually complied. But the conquistadors were not satisfied because if they complied so easily, there must be more. So they set out to find more gold, but never found the lost city. So here's the juicy stuff, essentially, the fable of Juan Martinez. So essentially, Martinez got kicked out of another city for just casually letting a munitions fire flame up, and he was condemned to death. But some of his friends, I guess, were in the city and they helped him escape, and he was taken by some natives downstream and hopped from town to town until they reached the great city of Manoa, where he met the Emperor Inga. Apparently, they blindfolded him after they met him and took him to the City of Gold and to the Palace of Inga. There he lived for 7 months in Manoa, and Inga asked whether he wanted to stay or not. He then chose to leave, and the Emperor just let him go on his way. Martinez then later tried to find his way back, but claimed that he forgot the way, and obviously he was blindfolded, but just pretty convenient, right? Which I'll mention this story when I get into my unhinged speculation about what he was actually seeing, but we continue. Since this and all the other expeditions throughout history, El Dorado over time has become more legend-like, and it even mixed with other legends such as the 7 Cities of Gold or the Lost 7 Cities of Cibola. It's the pretty popular belief that the 7 Cities of Gold, a legend that started in North America around the New Mexico-ish area, has been fabricated, but there have been older native accounts that led to the creation of that mystery in the first place. The Aztecs believed that there were 7 cities of gold that the Pueblos in modern-day New Mexico area lived in and ruled. But El Dorado is a South American legend, and the only relation between these two myths are the fact that they are legends and both located in the Americas. And of course, gold. But I think it's pretty certain that El Dorado is a different legend than the cities of Cibola. But the El Dorado that everybody knows and loves is the massive city of gold that somehow is lost in the jungle of South America. The city is full of huge golden mine-style pyramids. Every single building is made of pure gold, truly a paradise of wealth and riches in a beautiful rainforest somewhere along the rivers of the Amazon. Also, if El Dorado is real, I mean, what a sight for those early Spanish explorers. I can't even imagine if I was riding down some river in the jungle and came across a massive city like that. It would be ridiculous. All right, let's get into some theories. Since there have been hundreds of expeditions and attempts to find the city of El Dorado, I don't really want to touch on all of them. So I think I'm just going to jump into some theories since obviously nobody has ever found it. One of the main theories basically suggests that the Spaniards just ran into another Mesoamerican city that they had already discovered, but just accidentally rediscovered it and ended up calling it something else. So when they would go to the known city, it was determined that the rediscovered one must be somewhere else because they already knew of that previous but the same city. This is kind of annoying to me because, I mean, whoever discovered the new city should just recognize it immediately if he went back. So I doubt this is truly the solution to the lost city of gold. But another one suggests that the Spaniards actually did find the city and they did exploit it, taking all the riches back to Europe. And they essentially made up the legend to cover up the exploitation and destruction of the city. I'm actually kind of a fan of this thought. We know that the winners write history, and I don't think it would have taken much to cover up the destruction of a city that no other Western nation knew about. Being able to find all those pieces of gold and riches without any widely known, or at least publicly known, blood on your hands would have been the ideal move for the head of any state or empire. And maybe the whole city wasn't completely made out of gold and it was just some city with a lot of gold or sat on top of some mine. So basically Spain got the gold, left the city in ruins, and it's still there, just destroyed and underneath the jungles of the Amazon with no more material value. Another theory gets into the idea that when the Europeans brought disease over to the Americas and it spread into these wealthy cities along the Amazon, there was a mass die-off between the years of the first contact and then when the Spanish returned. And knowing how quickly even large items can be covered up by nature, these sites were abandoned and the Amazon overtook the city landscapes. Graham Hancock touches on this on Joe Rogan's podcast, episode 1284, I believe, and he goes over the LiDAR technology that's recently been used to map the landscape underneath the jungles and nature in Central America, Guatemala, and Honduras, I believe. People have found pyramid-like structures and other geometric-shaped structures in the ground, and it's really interesting. You should just go check it out. Obviously, they explain it a lot better than I do. But essentially, he believes that there were about 20 million people in total in the Amazon basin, with cities of around 50,000 people each along the rivers, roughly around 400-ish cities, which isn't even that much considering how big the Amazon is. It's roughly the same size as the entire Indian subcontinent. But yeah, essentially the cities were wiped out by disease and the rainforest overtook them by the time the Europeans got back. Now they're just legends or speculation until we get more LiDAR imaging of the rainforest, which hasn't happened yet. Only a super small percentage of the Amazon rainforest has actually been surveyed, so hopefully that changes, but definitely check out that episode. And just as a side note, the lost city of Z is very similar to the story of El Dorado, if not interchangeable. Maybe the legends were mixed together, maybe each of them were one of those many speculated cities in the Amazon. I just wanted to point that out before I got comments from people saying I confuse the two when they really are just very similar legends. The city of Z more focuses on a super advanced civilization within the Amazon, but anyways, I digress. And what I love about this so much is, since it's been around for so long and the legend continues, it leaves room for a lot of unhinged speculation. So let's go down this little rabbit hole I found. So the original account for El Dorado, Juan Martinez, said he was taken by river and blindfolded into the Golden City and was allowed to stay there at the palace with the emperor. He stayed for a long but sort of short amount of time, 7 months. I guess that's a long amount of time in a foreign mystical city, but anyways. Somehow, when he was given the opportunity to leave, he chose to leave and he was never able to find the city again. I mean, first of all, there's a couple thoughts about that. He could have just been lying the whole time, of course. He says that he lost it so he wouldn't have to prove that he found a made-up city. He could be hiding the real location of the city because he thought they were good people and knew how the other Spaniards would treat them and exploit them, probably kill them, if they ever got their hands on any of the gold in the lost city. Maybe he was hiding it from everyone else so he could go back to it one day himself, maybe with his family or whatever, and wanted to live in that paradise without telling anyone else. But either way, the main point of the story really is he was taken there and he couldn't find his way back. So I immediately questioned who or what took him there. Obviously, he was taken there with a blindfold, but if he left without one, I mean, if he's an explorer, he's got to have at least some sense of direction. How could he not just tell which way he left and then just return that same way? But whatever, I guess they could have just, I don't know, spun him around a lot. But now this gets into what Graham Hancock has also said when he mentions his ayahuasca sessions down in the Amazon, which the psychedelic was also available and regularly used in most of the ancient American cultures too, which is also something I learned while researching for this video. Another side note, apparently they fed this to infants before sacrificing them in some of the cultures. It's pretty brutal. But Graham Hancock essentially said that during his 4 to 5 hour ayahuasca trips, that he was greeted by beings similar to aliens and UFOs, but not quite like we imagine them today, but apparently they were somewhat similar to the Greys, kind of like elves. But anyway, they wanted to communicate with him, almost like someone wants to communicate with you, but you are in a foreign-speaking country. He says it wasn't verbal, more telepathic, but he couldn't understand what they were trying to tell him at first. He says that he was greeted and they offered to take him somewhere. Obviously, to the best of his understanding, he refused because he was just scared. He later says that he regretted that decision, but apparently this is a common interaction for people taking the drug. Which does make me wonder if the ancient Americans were regularly using the substance, not always for child sacrifice, which is from the Amazon, in which people are taken somewhere, they see geometric figures and all sorts of wild stuff. Could Juan Martinez have traveled to a place where they gave him ayahuasca, and the lost city of gold, or El Dorado, was another place in some other realm where he went and saw all sorts of enlightening images and geometric figures and golden pyramids? People that have experienced ayahuasca all give similar accounts to see amazing places and things that they can't fully understand. And because Martinez didn't know how to brew the drug, this is just me assuming they wouldn't teach him that in the 7 months he was there. And remember, this is if that's even true that he was there in the first place. That's why he didn't know how to get back to El Dorado. He didn't know how to make ayahuasca. Okay, and I know this is all unhinged and just me going down some rabbit hole, but my immediate thoughts after coming up with this is, why weren't those details in his own written accounts? But then again, this is just the friendly Christian Spanish missionaries and conquistadors that we're talking about. What would they have done to him if he described where he went during an ayahuasca trip? Obviously, this doesn't follow the religion, so, we can only assume. And again, this is my unhinged speculation. You can argue that, but I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't ayahuasca have been at any of the cities he visited? And if the experiences of most users are extremely similar, then we know what he most likely saw during his experiences. It explains why he can't find it again, and it also explains why it's still lost too, but obviously I guess we can just go ask Aaron Rodgers. But alright, what do y'all think? I mean, is it just a gilded king, just a ritual? Is it a real South American city in the Amazon, but just exaggerated? Or is it an actual golden lost city in the middle of the earth? Or even somewhere in another realm, and the people who saw it were just off the beam somewhere in the jungle? Let me know in the comments. I love talking about this, and I really hope y'all enjoyed the video as much as I did researching this ridiculous stuff. I thought it was a fun one to make. I know it was kind of off the cuff, but I think I can just kind of say whatever I speculate because there's no evidence to support any of it anyways. But yeah, if I missed any theories, if you have any of your own random unhinged speculations, leave a comment. I love reading them. Obviously, the most unhinged ones are the most entertaining. But yeah, come check out the Discord. We love talking about all this kind of nonsense. Thank you to my patrons, Bean, Fart, and Jack, who've been supporting me. It's been a lot of fun getting to know them. But at the very least, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.